They say Karen like it's a punchline, a viral label for entitlement, complaints, and public meltdown. But behind the memes are real people, and sometimes entitlement doesn't just humiliate, it spirals into something far darker. In this countdown, we'll walk through 5 of the most horrific, jaw-dropping ways Karens met their end. Bizarre accidents, public confrontations gone deadly, and twists of fate so brutal they read like a cautionary tale. It was June 22nd, 2016 in Phoenix, Arizona. Whitney Collins had no idea she was walking straight into her own demise. At 35 years old, standing just over 5 feet tall, she wasn't just a middle school vice principal. She was the embodiment of authority gone unchecked. Every part of her life revolved around control, confrontation, and capturing it all for the internet. Her red Honda Civic wasn't just transportation. It was a mobile stage, outfitted with phone mounts to record the meltdowns she engineered for her TikTok account, where nearly 8,000 people tuned in daily to watch her berate fast food workers and retail staff. That morning had already been a victory lap for her brand of chaos. She had suspended 3 students for attitude problems, humiliated a parent who dared question her methods, and posted a self-righteous video about teaching respect to the next generation. But Whitney didn't stop at her school. She carried her authority like a weapon, wielding it in drive-thrus and checkout lines, forcing teenagers and minimum-wage workers to crumble under her laminated credentials and viral threats. At one McDonald's location, she was infamous, a storm that staff dreaded seeing pull up. 2 young employees had already lost their jobs after her recordings made their way to corporate. So when she rolled into that drive-thru around lunchtime, phone already streaming, the staff braced themselves. Jake Martinez, just 17 years old, nervously told her the ice cream machine was broken. That single line was all it took. Whitney's face twisted into fury. Her voice sharpened as she leaned into the camera, telling her followers she knew lying teenagers when she saw them. Her chat lit up with laughing emojis and words of encouragement, fueling her rage like gasoline on a fire. Then came the move everyone expected, the one she was infamous for. She threw open her car door, leaving her Civic idling in drive, and stormed toward the towering electronic menu board. Live, loud, certain she owned the moment. She pounded her fists against the metal structure, shouting threats, name-dropping her position at the school, screaming about incompetence and consequences. And then, with her audience urging her on, she made her fatal mistake. She began shaking the menu board violently, each motion rattling bolts already weakened by desert windstorms. The sway was subtle at first, but it grew with every hit, every pull. Whitney didn't notice. She was too focused on Jake, too consumed with blaming him, too locked into the high of an audience egging her on. And then the impossible became inevitable. The metal giant groaned, tilted, and toppled. In one horrifying instant, the structure slammed down on her back, crushing her against the slow-rolling bumper of her own car. The sound was sickening. Ribs shattering, spine snapping, organs collapsing under 200 pounds of steel. Her livestream didn't miss a second. Viewers watched in stunned silence as her screams turned into gasps, her rage twisting into a final chilling stare of blame at the terrified teenager who had done nothing but tell her the truth. Jake quit the job that day, scarred by what he had witnessed. For weeks, he couldn't sleep, haunted by the image of Whitney's last breath. Investigators later discovered that behind the camera-ready persona, Whitney's conduct at school was already under scrutiny. Parents had complained, students had documented encounters. Her death, horrifying and grotesque, became something larger than a freak accident. It was a symbol, a grotesque warning about entitlement, obsession with viral fame, and the danger of believing authority makes you untouchable. Because in the end, Whitney Collins didn't just lose her life, she was crushed by the very performance she lived for. And her audience, the same people who cheered her on, could only watch as the ultimate Karen moment turned into the ultimate Karen tragedy. It was November 11th, 2015 in Seattle. The city's glow feels almost festive, with Black Friday chaos creeping into every store. But for 44-year-old Erin Lockhart, it wasn't about family shopping trips or holiday deals. It was about power. She wasn't just a luxury real estate agent with platinum blonde hair and a Mercedes parked outside. She lived to remind everyone that she was above them. Her business cards boasted million-dollar sales like badges of superiority. Her Instagram was a running diary of mocking poor people, and her followers cheered her every time she humiliated someone in public. To Erin, entitlement wasn't a flaw. It was her brand. That morning had already been a victory lap. She'd filmed herself ridiculing families waiting outside Target, berated a Starbucks barista, and even uploaded a video where she lectured a pregnant woman about shopping etiquette. By the time she arrived at Whole Foods after a champagne brunch, phone in hand and live stream rolling, Erin wasn't just shopping. She was hunting for content. Her signature tactic was simple: block anyone she deemed unworthy from accessing premium items, using her heels, designer clothes, and cutting tone to turn grocery aisles into her personal arena. And then she saw it, the last organic turkey. The Rodriguez family had reached for it first, their elderly grandmother carefully clutching the frozen bird. But Erin swooped in like a hawk, sneering into her camera as she berated them, focusing cruelly on the grandmother's broken English and slow movements. She shouted about being a premium customer, declaring that families like theirs didn't deserve the same products she did. Her followers ate it up, the comments scrolling as they urged her on. When Mrs. Rodriguez refused to let go, Erin's entitlement ignited into full-blown rage. She yanked at the turkey with one hand, gripping her phone with the other, determined to film her dominance. Her voice grew sharper, her movements more erratic, until her designer heels betrayed her. Backing up recklessly near the olive oil display, tipsy from brunch and drunk on ego, she stumbled. The shelves gave way. What followed was pure chaos. Glass shattered as bottles of olive oil crashed to the ground, one shelf toppling into the next in a chain reaction. Shoppers screamed, ducking as metal racks collapsed and jars exploded across the aisle. In the confusion, panic surged. Customers thought they were under attack. And then came the stampede. Erin was at the center of it all. Trapped beneath the fallen shelves, her body tangled in broken glass, she was swallowed by the terrified rush of people desperate to escape. Feet pounded over her chest, crushing her ribs, puncturing her lungs. A shard of glass tore through her carotid artery, spraying blood that mixed with spilled olive oil, creating a gruesome pool around her struggling body. Still, her hand clutched the turkey, the prize she refused to let go of even as her life drained away. Her phone kept recording. Every gasp, every scream, every final twitch was captured and uploaded in real time. By the time paramedics reached her, it was too late. Blood loss had already claimed her. They tried for 20 minutes, but her body was beyond saving. The aftermath was as brutal as her death. 3 customers ended up in the hospital. The Rodriguez family was harassed online by Erin's followers, needing police protection until accounts were shut down. Security footage of the incident went viral, exposing the cold truth. Her own arrogance had caused the very stampede that killed her. Whole Foods scrambled to implement new safety measures, reinforcing shelving and revising crowd control policies. Meanwhile, her real estate firm cut ties immediately, uncovering a long trail of discriminatory behavior that stained her reputation. It was July 4th, 2019 in Miami. Fireworks cracked in the distance. Families gathered around grills, kids splashed in pools, and the air was supposed to feel free, celebratory. But for 39-year-old Natalia Brooks, Independence Day wasn't about freedom. It was about control. At just 5'3", she ruled her suburban neighborhood like a miniature dictator, armed not with weapons but with HOA violation forms, a golf cart rigged with cameras, and a Facebook group called Violation Reporting, where over 200 residents lived in fear of being exposed. To her, being HOA president wasn't community service. It was a throne. That morning had already been a triumph for her power trip. She handed out citations for excessive decorations, filmed kids for noise violations, and ranted online about neighbors destroying property values. By noon, wine in hand and drunk on authority, she spotted a line of parked cars outside the Johnson family's pool party. To Natalia, it wasn't a holiday gathering. It was an unauthorized threat to her rule. She grabbed her clipboard, straightened her business suit, hit record on her phone, and stormed over like a sheriff ready to make an arrest. This was her routine. She would barge into people's lives, scream about rules, and then pull her signature intimidation move, walking backward, never breaking eye contact, as if her glare alone could force submission. And it usually worked. Parents folded, teenagers looked away, neighbors gave up. But that day, her performance turned deadly. Natalia shoved through the Johnson's gate, clipboard raised like a badge, shouting about illegal gatherings and parking violations. Families froze mid-burger bite. Children shrank back as she filmed their faces, declaring she ran this neighborhood. Her voice bounced across the pool deck as she strutted toward the water, heels clicking, clipboard waving. But then she made her fatal mistake, stepping onto the slippery stone, coping at the pool's edge, still walking backward, still locked in her dominance routine. The surface was wet, slick from children's splashing. Her leather heels slid. In a heartbeat, her balance vanished. The clipboard flew from her hand, and then came the splash. Her body hit the deep end hard, suit and shoes instantly turning into anchors. The fabric dragged her down before she could scream. Her arms flailed in panic, hands clawing at water that gave no grip. The clipboard bobbed beside her, mocking her authority as she sank deeper. At first, party guests thought it was another stunt, another dramatic attempt to scare them. But seconds stretched into minutes, and her thrashing grew weaker. By the time anyone realized she wasn't acting, it was too late. Over 3 minutes underwater, her lungs filled, her chest convulsed, and her body went limp beneath the surface. Emergency responders pulled her from the bottom, still clutching a crumpled wad of violation forms, the ink dissolving into unreadable pulp. Her death rippled through the neighborhood, but not with grief. Behind closed doors, people admitted they felt relief. Relief that the constant harassment, the surveillance, the threats, all of it had finally ended. The Johnson family faced no consequences. The party was perfectly legal. Natalia had been trespassing. The HOA dissolved her position immediately. The Facebook group that once fueled her tyranny was shut down after members began celebrating her downfall. And the state itself took notice, passing reforms to curb the unchecked power of HOA presidents. Natalia Brooks thought she could rule her neighborhood forever, but on that holiday meant for freedom, her obsession with control dragged her to the bottom of a pool, turning her clipboard and her power into nothing more than waterlogged fragments. It was September 8th, 2018 in Atlanta, Georgia. Rush hour traffic clogging Interstate 75, the kind of morning where tempers already ran high. For 41-year-old Danica Wells, though, this wasn't just traffic, it was her battlefield. She wasn't just another driver behind the wheel of a black SUV. She was a corporate compliance officer who carried her job title like a badge, turning highways into her own personal court. Her vehicle was rigged with dash cams, custom horns, and decals that screamed authority, as if that gave her the right to enforce rules no one asked her to. Her entire life, control and confrontation. She had 3 citations for aggressive driving, countless videos of her berating other motorists, and a LinkedIn page full of self-righteous posts about teaching respect. That Friday morning had already fed her power complex. She'd fired 2 employees, ranted online about accountability, and swallowed prescription stimulants she wasn't prescribed, fuel for her already explosive personality. Now, with the highway stretching before her, she was on the hunt for a target. She didn't have to wait long. A compact Honda merged in front of her SUV, perfectly legal. But to Danica, it was insubordination. Her rage erupted instantly. She slammed her horn, flashed her high beams, and pressed so close to the Honda's bumper it was a miracle they weren't touching. Her dash cam rolled, capturing her performance as she cursed into the camera, ranting about proper merging and holding people accountable. But tailgating wasn't enough. Danica pulled up alongside the Honda, still flying at 75 miles per hour. Window down, body half turned as she screamed through the glass. She gestured wildly, swerving dangerously close, her voice sharp with venom. To her, this was justice. To everyone else, it was lunacy. The other driver, terrified, tried to keep steady as Danica's SUV loomed like a predator ready to strike. What she didn't see, what she couldn't see, was the line of stopped traffic ahead. Construction cones, warning signs, concrete barriers, all clear, all obvious. But Danica's tunnel vision locked her onto the Honda, her ego too swollen to notice she was seconds from disaster. And then it happened. Her SUV slammed into the concrete barrier at full speed, the impact echoing like an explosion. 4,000 pounds of metal launched into the air, flipping violently. Once, twice, 3 times. The vehicle crashed back to earth upside down, mangled beyond recognition. Inside, Danica's body was whipped like a rag doll, her spine shattered in multiple places, her skull cracked against the roof. Her organs tore from the sheer deceleration, crushed under twisted steel. By the time rescuers reached the wreck, she was gone, lifeless, broken, her seatbelt and authority both meaningless against the physics she ignored. The dash cam never stopped rolling. It captured every scream, every wild gesture, every second of her fatal obsession. When authorities released the footage, it went viral instantly. People saw exactly how her aggression led to her death. The same platform where she had once boasted about accountability now mocked her. Comments flooded in. Compliance Karen couldn't comply with traffic laws. The driver she terrorized survived, but not without scars. They needed counseling to cope with the memory of watching someone's rage explode into a fatal accident right in front of them. Danica's employer was dragged into the spotlight too, her history of abusing power laid bare. The company scrambled, instituting anger management training and new rules for compliance officers. Danica Wells died trying to enforce rules on everyone else, blind to the fact that she was breaking the most important one, survival. Because in the end, concrete barriers don't bend for authority, no matter how loud you scream. It was October 8th, 2015, when Susan Rodriguez's relentless crusade for justice at her children's school turned into a night no one at Lincoln Middle in Boise, Idaho, would ever forget. At 43, Susan had become infamous within the district, the parent every administrator whispered about and every teacher dreaded. She wasn't just a mother. She was a force of disruption, thriving on confrontation, her voice booming through school hallways, her phone always ready to film the next scandal she could push online. What she called advocacy was, to everyone else, a one-woman performance staged for attention and control. That night she showed up nearly an hour and a half before the school board meeting, prowling the halls like she owned them. Before the chairs were even set, she cornered the principal, demanding an overhaul of the cafeteria's lunch menu and threatening to expose the truth to the media. She spoke loud enough for every parent nearby to hear, declaring the administration was failing their children, pointing fingers, drawing eyes. When reminded that the meeting hadn't even started, Susan didn't falter. She raised her phone, recording herself as she accused staff of covering up problems, her voice echoing through the hall like the opening act to a drama she had staged countless times before. But while Susan focused on her performance, she ignored the very real danger above her. The school was under heavy renovation, scaffolding stacked in corners, dust clinging to the air, construction crews working late to finish electrical upgrades. Directly over Susan's head, new lighting fixtures had been mounted into an aging section of ceiling tile, one that workers had already flagged as weakened. No one expected a parent to be standing there so early, and Susan, distracted by her own theatrics, never noticed the ominous creak in the ceiling above. At 6:20 p.m., just as she shuffled her papers and rehearsed her talking points for the board, the sound came. A low, sharp crack that silenced the hallway for a split second before chaos erupted. The ceiling tile gave way, and with it came a heavy light fixture crashing down from nearly 12 feet above. Parents gasped, staff screamed, but Susan had no time to react. The impact struck her squarely on the head and shoulder with brutal force, dropping her instantly to the floor. Her phone skittered away, its camera capturing only muffled shouts and frantic movement. She never regained consciousness. By the time paramedics arrived, she was fighting for her life, her skull fractured, her neck severely damaged. At the hospital, doctors worked relentlessly, but 2 days later, Susan's battle ended. Her final performance had played out in front of the very audience she craved, but the ending was one she could never have scripted. The investigation that followed was damning. Corners had been cut during the renovation, safety measures ignored, oversight neglected. Susan's death wasn't just a freak accident, it was preventable. Her family, broken and furious, turned their grief into action, forcing the district to confront its failures. Schools across the city shut down for inspections, safety codes rewritten overnight, new standards enforced with uncompromising detail. Susan Rodriguez had spent her life demanding change, though often for the wrong reasons. In the end, the very chaos she courted became the catalyst for something far larger than herself. Her story remains a chilling reminder of how easily control can slip away, how a single ignored danger can turn an ordinary evening into a tragedy, and how sometimes the loudest voice in the room is silenced in the most brutal way imaginable.